A siren cuts through the quiet of the night. That sharp rising wail is a sound that tears through sleep and shatters peace. It is a sound that signals trouble, a sound that makes you hold your breath. For the small Michigan town of Havenwood, on the evening of September 29, 2025, that sound was the prologue to a story of unimaginable sorrow. People settling in for the night hurried to their radios, their televisions, their phones, their faces lit by the pale blue glow of screens. The news began to spread, first as a whisper, then as a torrent. A shooting. A shooting had taken place inside the First Community Chapel on Elm Street, a place known for its open doors and welcoming spirit. But the core facts were brutal and clear. Lives had been lost. More people were hurt, their conditions unknown. The death toll, a cold and clinical term for so much human pain, was expected to rise. In homes across Havenwood and beyond, families began a frantic, desperate ritual. They called their loved ones. They sent messages that went unanswered. They waited, their hearts pounding in time with the relentless sirens that now seemed to come from every direction. A community, known for its quiet strength and neighborly bonds, was about to face its darkest hour. The sense of urgency was a physical thing, a weight pressing down on the town. The First Community Chapel was more than just a building. It was a place for Sunday services, potluck dinners, youth groups. The evening prayer service at the First Community Chapel was a small, intimate affair, a gathering of the faithful, a quiet punctuation at day's end. Older couples who had attended for decades, young families with children just learning the hymns, individuals seeking a moment of communal peace. They were neighbors. They were friends. Then came the sounds that did not belong. Some thought it was a book falling, or perhaps fireworks from a distant street. But the sounds came again, sharp and percussive, and the illusion of safety shattered. Panic erupted. The air, moments before filled with prayer, was now thick with fear. Some screamed, some dove for cover, some were frozen in place. The attacker moved through the room, violating the sanctuary in the most brutal way imaginable. First responders were on the scene in minutes. Police cars, fire trucks, ambulances converged, lights painting the neighborhood red and blue. They moved with practiced speed, running toward the danger others fled. The police response was swift, a coordinated effort born of extensive training. They formed an entry team, breached the chapel, and moved to locate and neutralize the active threat. Inside, devastation. They advanced through chaos, past survivors, past the injured, toward the gunfire. Training carried them, movements precise and tactical as they worked to corner the shooter and end the assault. The Havenwood police chief later confirmed the outcome at a press conference. Once the immediate threat was contained, the chapel became a complex crime scene. Local, state, and federal teams descended to assist. They meticulously documented, using three-dimensional scanning to model the interior and map evidence. Casings collected, entry points examined, weapons processed, work crucial to building the case. Authorities identified the shooter as 24-year-old Nathan Cross. Early reports sketched a troubled young man. He lived alone, had no significant criminal record, but a digital footprint showing growing isolation and anger. Investigators dug for motive, journals, manifestos, messages. Why this chapel? Why this congregation? The stories that emerged from the survivors were fragments of a nightmare, pieced together in hushed, trembling voices. They spoke of small acts of bravery and moments of crushing terror. One grandmother, Eleanor Vance, pulled two children under a pew, shielding them with her own body. She whispered a hymn to drown out the terrible sounds. She felt the floor tremble with each shot and prayed, not for herself, but for the children. Hers was one of many, testaments to protection in mortal danger. David Chen had been near the back when it began. He crawled to a bleeding congregant and used his belt as a makeshift tourniquet. He kept him awake, focused on a human voice in the chaos. He thought only of the life slipping away in front of him. These accounts are difficult but essential, reminding us that amidst horror, there was humanity, compassion, and courage. The work did not end when the shooting stopped. In fact, it had only just begun. Havenwood Police, bolstered by the Michigan State Police and the FBI, launched a full-scale investigation, methodical and relentless. Processing the scene required immense care and precision. They photographed, cataloged, and collected every potential clue. Casings, belongings left behind, each item a fragment of the story. Detectives built a comprehensive timeline. They worked back from the first 911 call, canvassing for video, traffic feeds, cell data, digital receipts, tracing Cross's path. The timeline was essential for the legal case and for the community's questions. Officers interviewed every survivor in calm, supportive settings. Accounts were cross-referenced, listening for details to illuminate behavior and motive. A dedicated team profiled Nathan Cross, family, acquaintances, workplace, social media, forums, writings. The goal was to uncover the why, not to excuse, but to prevent future tragedy. In the hours and days after, the town waited as the official numbers were updated. The initial reports were grim. The reality worse. The death toll rose slowly. Each number, another family shattered. Another candle extinguished too soon. Some were pronounced at the scene, inside a place they sought for peace. Others were rushed to hospitals. Doctors and nurses fought for life while families kept vigil. The victims were not statistics. They were the fabric of Havenwood. With each name came a life, an elderly couple always in the same pew, a beloved young teacher, a teen who played guitar, coaches, librarians, mechanics, grandparents, hospitals stretched to limits, surgeons, nurses, support staff worked round the clock, restaurants fed staff, citizens donated blood, officers and clergy performed the heaviest duty, notifications. For those families, time stopped, yet the town mourned as one. Flags lowered, a makeshift memorial. Dozens of candles and bouquets flickering beneath a church sign became a beacon of shared sorrow. Silence fell, then action, born of grief, compassion, and refusal to be defined by hatred. A sea of remembrance glowed through the night. Thousands gathered, pastors, rabbis, imams, voices united for peace. No easy answers, only shared grief, love over hate, light in deep darkness. Resilience spread, businesses, schools, neighbors supporting neighbors. Donations poured in, for funerals, medical bills, and burdens too heavy to carry alone. In its darkest hour, Havenwood showed its brightest character. This outpouring began the healing and declared that violence would not speak the final word. The shooting forced hard questions about safety, in Havenwood and across the nation. Some advocated stronger physical measures, trained security, cameras, metal detectors, practical responses to a violent threat. Others feared fortresses would alter the mission. Houses of worship should welcome, not suspect. They argued true security lives in shared bonds and care, not only in walls and weapons. Leaders and clinicians called for stronger mental health care, funding, access, and reduced stigma, to identify and support those in crisis. The legal purchases reignited debate, universal background checks, red flag laws, and restrictions on certain semi-automatic weapons. Divisions remained, but in Havenwood's grief the call for action felt urgent. As shock faded, the long journey toward healing and justice began. With the shooter deceased, there would be no trial. A difficult void for many. Months later, a definitive report, minute by minute, confirming he acted alone, driven by isolation and extremist ideologies. The building became a scar. Some urged demolition, others fought to reclaim it. They chose to renovate. Light-filled spaces, a memorial garden, a plaque bearing the names. For survivors, healing is daily. An empty chair at dinner, holidays changed, triggers in crowds and noise. They learned to carry memory and move forward, finding joy and honoring the lost by living fully. This is more than a timeline of terror. It is about what comes after.